Hey, Inspired Moneymaker. Have you set goals for the new year? Make any New Year's resolutions? In order to help all of us, myself included, we're going to talk with high-performance coach David Wood, because we don't want to set big, audacious goals and then not see them through by year end. David has built one of the most successful coaching businesses with 150,000 followers. He's author of the book, Get Paid for Who You Are. The foreword of that book is written by Jack Canfield, co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And David has taught laser focus to leaders at Facebook, Square, Warner Brothers, Salesforce, and even Colorado prison inmates. You'll hear about that in the interview. Before moving on, hit subscribe if you're not subscribed already. I learn so much from every one of these interviews, so I appreciate you tagging along with me. I hope that you learned something too. I welcome your comments below. In this episode, we're going to talk about the idea of magic money. That's money that comes into our lives completely unexpectedly. Why David left his corporate job as an actuary, serving Fortune 100 companies to pursue personal growth and eventually become a coach. And then make sure you stay until the end to get 5 steps to doubling your revenue in less time. This is going to be so much fun. Let's get inspired with David Wood. David, welcome to Inspired Money. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm feeling excited myself.
Let's jump right in. What's your earliest childhood memory of money?
Going to the shop and buying a packet of chips, some people call them crisps, and for $16, salt and vinegar, 16 cents, salt and vinegar chips. So I remember that. And also what came up is there was a post in the backyard where the 4 fences from 4 neighbors met. And it'd be like a big old wooden post. And it was kind of decayed a little bit in the top, been there for I don't know how many years. And I would go and poke around in the top of that thing and I would find money. I would find a 20-cent piece or a 10-cent piece. And over like 2 or 3 years, every now and then, I just find a little bit of money in there. And it was like magic. And I don't know if I ever told my mother about it. That was my little magic money post.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, my 13-year-old daughter, for the last 3 or 4 years, every time we go skiing, when we're in the ski lodge, I think she'll go through like video arcade or vending machines and she sticks her finger in. She's collected a whole bag of cash. I think it added up to $13 or something, which I was impressed by.
Wow. Yeah. And you know what? That magic money concept hasn't stopped. I don't fully understand money. But, every now and then something will come my way. I think 3 years ago, I got a check from Google. Someone had brought a class action suit against them for their advertising. And I'd been an advertiser for many years. I got a check for 20 grand out of nowhere. And then just a month ago, a friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey, you really helped me when I started my business. And now I'm doing really well, and I want to take care of people who help me get to the dance. What can I get you in the $10,000 to $15,000 range as a gift?" Are you kidding me? Like, wow. So hey, it's a bit of a mystery to me, but I still enjoy playing the game.
I love this idea of magic money.
Oh.
Did you graciously accept that gift?
Oh, hell yes. It took me a month though, because I went on a ride. I'm like, can I receive this? And if I ask for something that's $15,000, is that asking too much? And I couldn't find one thing that I thought would give me a lot of joy that cost over 10 grand. I couldn't think of anything. So in the end, we decided on a combo. I could get 2 or 3 things. And yes, I am gratefully and graciously accepting. Like, thank you, friend. Thank you, universe.
Are you willing to share what you selected?
I am willing. I selected There's an advanced medical treatment here in Boulder. They do a lot of research with a lot of medicines, and one of them is ketamine. And they've been getting amazing results with depression and PTSD, which I've suffered from for a long time in my life. And so I think I'm going to do that series. It's still a little bit experimental, but they're getting great results, and it cost about $6,000. So I'm going to get that. And then the other thing, I'm not totally sure on it yet, but I never treat myself to business class ever because it's so expensive. And I thought it would be really nice next time I go to Australia to be able to relax and actually really enjoy the flight instead of feeling like you're in, cattle class. So we'll see. That might be the second thing.
Right on. Well, that's a long flight, so I think well worth it. And speaking from somebody who's flown to Asia, in pretty tight quarters.
Yeah, for sure. I want to go to my parents and my brother are in Australia. So I want to be able to go back every couple of years. And then Bali is one of my favorite places of all time.
So I know that you are an actuary. And whenever I see these lists of good jobs to have, actuaries seem to be on there. I mean, it's like a limited supply, I guess. A lot of qualification is required. So maybe you can command a good salary and there's job stability there. You were consulting to Fortune 100 companies. How is it that you transitioned from that to becoming a high performance coach?
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't know what an actuary is. You'll hear it. Well, I hear it. You get references now and then in movies.
Ned, I would love to stand here and talk with you, but I'm not going to. See.
Hey, that's all right. I'll walk with you. Whenever I see an opportunity now, I charge it like a bull. Ned the Bull, that's me now. I got friends of mine who live and die by the actuarial tables, and I say, hey, it's all one big crapshoot anywho. Tell me, have you ever heard of single premium life? Because I think that really could be the ticket for you. Oh, God!
So yeah, it's really hard to qualify. It's actually quite brutal. And I came top of my school, then went into actuarial studies and found it horrific, like really brutal. You'll study for a year for an exam, sit 100% 6-hour written exam, and sometimes 80% of people will fail that exam. So then you got to sit for another year you got to study it again because now the legislation has just changed. So I found it brutal, and you can command a good salary. And I thought I had it made being on Park Avenue, but I wasn't happy and I was having trouble in my marriage. So someone suggested a personal growth course, and I had such judgments about that. I'm like, no way. They're all wearing name tags. They're smiling way too much. And they're weak-willed, but maybe I'll get in and do one, but I'm not going to become a self-help junkie. Well, famous last words. They cracked me open. They cracked my cynicism, and I found myself accidentally coaching people in the course, and I changed someone's life overnight. And it was an incredible experience to watch her go into something she was terrified of. And after our conversation, she went and risked it, and then got this massive freedom in her life. She basically confessed to an affair. That's what she did after 10 years of marriage. And after manipulating her husband and holding him under the thumb because he had an affair, she said, you know what? I'm the same as you. I want to come clean. I'm terrified of what's going to happen. And it was a magical result. And I'm like, how do I have more of this? I want to know how to coach people and how to help them when they get stuck, so that they can have freedom and self-expression and more love in their life. And then the business stuff came later.
Wow. So you led someone to this breakthrough moment very early. Did you have a breakthrough moment early on, or was that it?
I've had many breakthrough moments in my life, but I had one during the course. They kept talking about your past and how we keep living from the past. And the reason we're having a lot of problems is because our past is also in our future and we can't get free of it. And then one day I stood up in the course and I was crying, And I said, I don't get it. You guys are all wanting to solve world hunger and create world peace and do all these amazing things. And I didn't care about any of that stuff. What am I going to do? And the leader said, well, where did you get that from? And it flashed in a second. I said, I got that from my past. And I realized in that moment, how do I know? Maybe I do care about something. Maybe there is an inspiring project that I want to get involved in. Ended up dedicating my entire life to coaching people to have their lives be better. I didn't know that was going to come. But in that moment, I'm like, wow, in that moment, I was free of the past to create an entirely new future.
How has this path changed the direction of your life? Because I've heard you talk about the actuarial work was missing the emotion in that occupation.
True. That's true. You didn't hear about that today, right? You must have heard me say it. Did you hear me say it somewhere else?
I did.
All right. I like that you've done your research. It's true. I'm a geek. I'm a nerd. I'm really good at numbers and businesses and systems and stuff like that. But what I didn't know until the age of 27, when I did this course, I didn't know that I was missing some really key components. I didn't know about emotional vulnerability, emotional intelligence. I didn't know about feeling into my body to see what my body's feeling. I didn't know about checking with my emotions, like what's going on in the emotional landscape. And I didn't know about checking in for thoughts. I had no idea about this. I was just really good at making stuff happen in business. So that course changed my life because I learned how to learn in that course. I learned that there was a lot missing from my life. So I've spent the last 20, 30 years sitting with gurus, going to Germany and India, and doing a month with Byron Katie and doing stuff that'll make your hair curl because I wanted to push the limits and find out what personal growth really meant and how everything's put together. So now I'm in an unusual situation. I've got all this business knowledge, so people come to me because they want business stuff. But I also know a lot about how to welcome life and how to flow with life and how to show up as a human being so that life's richer. So people come to me usually because they want both. They want a business result and they want to be a more extraordinary partner, parent, leader, and human.
It sounds like you learned that the business side in the numbers doesn't have to be exclusive. How do you marry those things together? Because I saw on your website, you said that you look to work with entrepreneurs who value helping others and contributing to a marketplace, not just making money.
Yeah. Well, making money is great. I've made my peace with that. Making money is great and it's important. Let's stop apologizing for the fact that we care about it. Because a lot of people in the spiritual community is like, oh, money's not important or you shouldn't need it. No. As Zig Ziglar said, money isn't everything, but it rates up there with oxygen. So we start there. Let's double your revenue over the next 12 months. But let's look at what else matters. Now, another thing that tends to matter to a lot of my clients is they want more time off as well. They don't want to just make more money. They want to make more money smarter so that they've got plenty of time to maybe go and play tennis or maybe do a songwriting course or spend more time with the kids or have kids. So that's usually the secondary target. All right, how much time off do you want and how are we going to leverage so that you do that? But then after that, everything's fair game. I've got one client who just got diagnosed with cancer. So yeah, sure, we're working on the business, but I had a beautiful coaching session with her and her husband around what game are you going to play now? Now that you've got this knowledge and you might not live as long as you want, what are you going to do with that time? And we had a wonderful session. I have other clients. I got an executive client who comes to me and says, how can I connect more with people? I'm not a real people person, and a lot of people see me as arrogant. What can I do about that? Well, I love that. You bring something like that to me. I'm like, all right, why don't we play with curiosity this week? I want you to get curious about people, honestly curious about what makes them tick, about how their day's going, about what they want to make happen here at work. Play with that. And while you're at it, go and practice on your wife. Get curious about her day. And when she says, oh, it was good, keep going. What was good about it? Well, this and this happened. Oh, I imagine I'd be excited if that happened. Do you feel lit up, or do you feel turned on, or do you feel inspired, or something else? And so I get to bring in some of those personal skills that people can practice at work and at home, because you're the same person. You're the same person pretty much at work as you are at home. So it's ridiculous to think, oh, I need a coach for how I am at work, and then I need a separate coach for who I'm going to be when I come home with the wife and the kids. It's so intertwined, it cannot be separated. So I refuse to only look at one in my business. I just can't do it.
It looks like you have a very specific niche of clients that you work with, being entrepreneurs who can build their businesses, and you can really have an impact on their business and on their life. But you've also coached prison inmates. How does that fit in? Can you share some of your experiences in doing that work?
Yeah. How's it fit in? Well, when I got to Boulder, Colorado, I came to check out the people, came to check out a training program my friend Deka Kunyov was leading, and I discovered an area that I just didn't know much about, which was authentic relating. Now, I'd learned a lot about communication. I'd learned a lot in my 20 years, 30 years of personal growth, but I didn't know about things like checking for impact. So when you share something with someone, how is it for you to hear that? Is it embarrassing, frustrating, or something else? Like, I didn't know about a lot of these things, like curiosity. And so I got very excited about that. And then someone told me about a prison program. I said, can you hang out tonight? He said, I can't. I'm going to go and help out with this prison program on authentic relating. And for years, I'd wanted to do something in prisons. It just seemed like it'd be such an amazing experience to go in there with people who don't have a lot of privileges and to be of service. So I've been kind of waiting for an opportunity. And when someone said, here's both prison service and its authentic relating, which I really cared about and I wanted to learn about, I reached out to the director and I said, sign me up. Can I help? And I did a coaching session with her. She's like, all right, you know your stuff. Come and assist at the next prison. And then the next one, she said, okay, why don't you co-lead this with us? You obviously know what you're doing. You know how to train. And it's been such an amazing experience to go away for a couple of days, get an Airbnb with a couple of friends, and walk into minimum, medium, or even maximum security prison where you hear those bars slam behind you every time you go through a check station. Sometimes the gate will shut and you're in a little cubicle that you cannot get out of until they've opened the second door. And it's a real feeling of powerlessness. But then you get to sit with these men or women who are basically hungry. That's been my experience. They're hungry to learn. They're literally a captive audience. And they're like, we want to learn how to have a better life. We want to learn how to get on with people. We want to learn how to motivate and influence people. We want to learn how to deal with our own frustration and anger when it comes up and not just blow up. So we go in and it's through a company called Authentic Relating. Well, the website's authenticrelating.org, and they've just rebranded to the Realness Project. If anyone's interested in supporting what they're doing in prisons, you go and donate $5 or $10. They'll love you because they're working mostly on donations right now.
Authentic relating going into a networking event, like a big room, that seems intimidating already. Authentic relating going into a prison, was that scary for you?
Yes. It was scary. There's something fascinating about prison and prison life to me. And I watch prison movies. A lot of people do. It's like, what? It's one of my worst fears, like being in prison. And so to go in there and have those gates close, it's like I'm confronting a fear. And my psychiatrist called me counterphobic, which didn't make sense at the time, but now it does, because I realize if I'm afraid of something, I will lean into it. That's my nature. I'm afraid of heights, so I'll go on paraglide at 10,000 feet over the Himalayas solo, right? I'm afraid of being abandoned. So early in my life, before I knew any better, I would experiment with open relationships and dating someone who's dating someone else, because I was afraid of that. And I wanted to conquer that fear. So I think a similar thing is happening with the prisons.
Wow. I just read an article recently about a guy who's in prison, I think for murdering somebody, and in solitary confinement, he studied math. And he was a high school dropout and found that he had this love and skill for math. He is now working with college professors at some university in Italy, doing really high-level research. It's really incredible. He sees it as his second chance, and that when he gets out, already while he's in prison, he's able to have these relationships and actually be doing productive work. And it was really inspiring.
Well, that's beautiful, and I think that's a lesson for all of us. First, I want to ask you: have you ever wondered what you would do in prison? Have you ever thought about it and thought, I'd probably focus my time on A, B, and C, or is it just me who thinks about that?
Maybe I watch too many TV and movies. I figured that I'd be in better shape because I'm just going to be like in the prison yard working out.
Yeah, right.
And then hopefully reading a lot of books and exercising your mind at the same time, because what else do you have to do? You need to open your mind when you are confined by these walls. Yes. So I think about that too.
Yeah. I thought about it too. And I thought I'd probably be pretty ripped. I'd probably be really good at meditation, right? I might get into yoga, and I figure I'd study something. Knowing me, I'd probably try and find a cause, like create a group or something. I've heard stories of inmates where they led the yard. Oh, my buddy Charlie. Damn, I've forgotten his last name now. He ran 100 consecutive marathons across the Sahara Desert, and I've forgotten his last name right now. But when he was in prison, he was doing yoga, and I think initially they laughed at him and whatever, but eventually a bunch of them started learning from him and doing it. And he led a class, and he ran, man, he's a runner. So he would run, and that kept him sane. So I do often wonder about it. But my point is, I've spoken to a lot of inmates, and I've heard quite a few of them find something. They look for something to give their life meaning. One inmate, restitution. She was getting in touch with the family. She was going to have a conversation with them and apologize for the impact she'd had on her victims. So that was a project she created. Other people, maybe they get a degree. Maybe they try and help people within the prison. But if they can do that in prison, find meaning and create something that they can devote themselves to, then the rest of us don't have any excuse. The rest, not like, oh, I'm bored. And I'm guilty. Oh, I'm bored, or I'm not finding motivation or whatever. Oh my God. There are about 1 billion things that I can study at any given time. There are about 50 musical instruments I can play. I can go and take a walk. I can get involved with 100,000 organizations. The rest of us don't have any excuse not to embrace everything that's available to us.
Yes, and we shouldn't have this dream about getting ripped because we're in prison. We should get ripped because we're free.
Dude, I did some pull-ups this morning. I bought a chin-up bar, Because a friend of mine, Russell Price, who's a great coach, he said, why don't you try exercise snacks? Because I don't like to work out for an hour. But he's like, you work for 25 minutes, you go to the bathroom, drop and do 50 push-ups. And I thought, I can do that. I can just do as many push-ups as I can until my arms give out, and then I'll go back to work. So I started doing exercise snacks, and I worked up from, I think it was like 40 push-ups a day to 160. And then I'm like, well, while I'm at it, why don't we get a chin-up bar? And I went online, and you can get chin-up bars that you don't have to drill in. They like hang on the door jamb. And I could never do one of those wide pull-ups. So your arms go really wide, and I got to pull up my body weight. But now I can. And I tell you what, I'm going to admit it right here. I look in the mirror after a shower, pretty happy with what I'm seeing. So you're right, buddy. You don't have to wait until you're in prison to do something that you think would be a good time.
All right. Since we're talking about these workout snacks and getting fit and buff, since it's the beginning of 2021, it's a time when many people have started New Year's resolutions and they're thinking about goals for the year. How can we help our listener today to make 2021 really great? Because you say that we can double revenue by focusing on less.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, look, I'd like to tell you something really sexy and new that no one's ever heard before. And they're like, oh my God, that's genius. But sometimes the best stuff you can hear is the practical stuff that actually works, that you just know you should be doing, but you're not doing. So I'm going to give you some of that. So the first one, it's January now, January 2021. We've had a lot of us have had a pretty rough year. What's your goal list look like for December 31? What's it look like? Like if you got a business, pick 3 business goals that would have you do the happy dance. Pick 3 personal goals that would have you do the happy dance. It might be, I want my kids to be 50% prouder of their dad or their mom, or I want my relationship, I want us both to be 50% happier in our relationship. Whatever it is, a great way to start with your goals is, how do I want to feel? Write that down. What state do you want in your body? Because that's really what I care about, and what I think most of us really care about. Most of the things we buy are all to change our state. It's because we want to feel good. Most of the things we do and manipulate is because we want to feel good. So write down how you want to feel and work backwards. All right. To do that, to feel that, I should be doing this. These are the activities that have me feel like that. And then these are the goals that I want to check off. It might be, I will have had 30 dance lessons by then. I will be at a certain level of competence in this. I will have my revenue at this target. Most of my clients, they want to double revenue in 12 months and double their time off. So if they're working 8 hours a day right now or 10 hours a day, their goal might be to be working 5 hours a day. And if you focus, and I'll go through the steps. This is step 1, which is working out 12-month goals. But if you implement this, I firmly believe it's possible for you to achieve twice as much of what matters in half the time. Do that by simple focus. So, all right, we got step 1, 12-month goals. Step 2, you got to make it real. You got to layer these goals and create a path from 12 months to the current day. Because you just put goals up on your fridge doesn't mean anything, and you're probably not going to look at them again. So let's create our 8-week goals, because that's coming up soon. So, all right, I got my 12-month goals. So what could I achieve 8 weeks from now that would have me feel like I'm fully on track and feel really accomplished? This would be motivational for me. Want me to get out of bed. Then that's step 2. And then step 3, what am I going to achieve this week? This is where we start to move from the macro to the micro. This week, I know my 8-week targets. What am I going to bite off in the next 7 days that will hopefully be fun? Some of it won't be fun. Some of it will be fun, but it will really move me towards those 8-week goals. And then what I do this once a week. So let's call that step 3. Step 4, put in your calendar a weekly date with yourself for 20 minutes. And I call this a CEO date. You are the chief executive officer of your own life. 20 minutes. That's all I'm asking for. Once a week, 4:00 on a Friday, or you might do it 4:00 on a Sunday. And you look back over the week and you celebrate what you accomplished. Super important. And then look forward at your 8-week goals and say, what am I going to bite off this week? Now, if I don't do that by 1:00 on Friday, I have to pay $5 to somebody. That's my commitment. If I don't have that rule, then I will just slide on it. It's not going to happen. I'll just keep on working away, right? But this makes me do it. And then I put them on Post-it notes on my board. That's how I track it. These are the things that I choose to care about for the next 7 days. But if you don't have that weekly date, you'll do it once because you listen to this podcast, and you'll never do it again. So step 4 is critical. And then here's the last one to really bring it back to the micro. Okay, I know what my 7-day goals are, but what will I do when I wake up tomorrow? And here's a great question. If I only did 2 things tomorrow that would move my business or my life forward, what would those 2 things be? And a great system for that is set a reminder. Like, I'm not going to remember to do that. So I set a reminder on my phone, say 4:00, 4:30, 5:00 every day. What are the 2 things that you do tomorrow? Write them down on Post-it notes, pop them up on your board, computer, or wherever it goes. And then how wonderful. When you wake up, you know what to do. You don't have to wonder about it. Do not check email. Do not check phone messages. They'll still be waiting 2 hours from now. Do a sprint. Get in, work on those 2 things. Turn everything else off. That's where a lot of people fall down. So I know we're getting into steps 6, 7, and 8. This is why it's not necessarily easy what I'm talking about. It's simple, but it's not easy to implement. You will fall down. Don't worry. But I have a cheat sheet. If you like, Andy, we can give it away at the end of this episode. I have a cheat sheet with a checklist. You can go through and just check it off to make sure you've covered the things that we talked about here today and that you implement them. And then you'll fall off the horse. Guaranteed. You'll be like, oh, I sat down to do my two-hour sprint. I had my 2 Post-it notes ready. And then my kid came knocking at the door, and then I had to go and handle something for an hour. Or I got a text message. Or I went in to write an email and I saw an email and it was time sensitive. Oh my God. Number of ways you can get derailed is infinite. But keep getting back on the horse, keep going through the checklist, and it's an absolute game changer.
Who's the enemy, David? Is it our email, our phone, binge watching Netflix? I know that you talk a lot about shiny object syndrome. Like, we just have too many ideas and we can't get focused.
I think it's the human mind. And I wouldn't call it the enemy, but we'll call it the challenge for us. So the human mind is amazing. It can bounce from thing to thing to thing, and then over here, and then up there, and then down here. And how fun is that? Like, look, I've got my list for the week. I had an idea right before this podcast that I think is pure genius. And I came up with this idea for a program that I could write or get help writing that would crawl the web, create my own podcast database, and basically give me a whole bunch of data on which podcasts would be the best ones for me to be on. And I won't go into the details, but no, I will, just a little bit. What if I could ask to this program, hey, Charlie, go and look at all the guests on Andy's show and then tell me which of those guests have their own podcasts that would be a fit for my message. Give me that list. And then I'll go back to Andy and see if there might be a couple that he'd be willing to make an introduction to. Never had that idea before. I think it's really good. I was going to pay someone to go and do it, but that adds up all the time. If I had a database, we could just, do a lot of stuff. So that's a shiny object, right? My mind is like, now I'm going to let my mind do that because it's so cool and I'm so lit up about it. I'm a nerd and I love programming. So I'm going to do this. But that's an example where your own mind can take you away from the goals that you've set. There, as a business owner, for anyone listening, if you own a business, you've got maybe 5 different target markets that you would like to help and serve. You've got maybe 5 different problems that each of those avatars are suffering from that you'd like to help them with. You see how we're getting scattered? There are all these different shiny objects. You're not going to be able to do all of them well. And then traffic sources. Yeah, I want to test Cleverly. I want to test a program called Cleverly for LinkedIn traffic. I want to test Facebook ads. I want to appear on podcasts. I want to do social media. There's all of this, but again, we start to get scattered. So I think our own mind, which is a wonderful gift, can be our biggest challenge. And that's why I recommend 12 months, 8 weeks, 7 days. You choose so you've got a bit of structure and you have a chance for discipline to say, all right, I want to do that, but it's not in my 7-day goals. I'm going to put it in the other column for later because I'm focused right now and I'm going to get this done because this is the best chance I've got of getting the results I want.
Is it during these dates with yourself that you can think about priorities and make space for those ideas that you're coming up with randomly sometimes? They just come to you before a podcast. When do you work those in and try to figure out, okay, this is worthwhile exploring and I'm going to put this on the back burner, but I'm going to come back to it versus getting distracted and not getting any of the things that you're supposed to be doing done?
Yeah, exactly. I believe we have 2 personalities in us. We have about 20, but 2 big ones. One's the worker. Tell me what to do, point me in the right direction, turn off Facebook and my email and don't have anyone knock at the door and have my plane on airplane mode. I pretty much could get something done. Takes discipline. My mind is still going to want to take me off track. Got to come back to it. But the worker can do that. What the worker can't do is make the executive decisions. The worker can't look at the big picture. The worker can't look at the future and see what's coming down the pipe. That's why we want these dates with ourselves where we put on our CEO hat. I've actually got a hat here. Here's my focus.ceo hat. Put on that hat, and this is where it's almost like we're parenting ourselves and we make the tough decisions. And this is where we'll go, all right, given the resources I've got this week, what can I take on? I want to do 10 things. I can probably only do 5. What's my priority? And then, equally important, what will I choose not to care about for the next 7 days? Like, what am I willing to say no to? I've got a bunch of things in the column on my board up here that have not made it into this week. So these are things I want to do someday. Like, what do we got? Set up SMS messaging for my clients. Hire a social media editor because my last one just quit. So, I've got these things, but I have chosen not to care about them for 7 days. So that's why the date is so important, because that's where you'll exercise the discipline. When you're the worker, you need to listen to your own CEO. This is where I had one client fall off the wagon. He would make these commitments to himself, and he even agreed that if he didn't meet the commitments, he'd pay $5 as a penalty for each one. But then he'd rebel against himself during the week. It was insane. He wouldn't do the stuff, and then he'd pay the $5. I'm like, it's almost like you're being parented by yourself, and you're throwing a tantrum each week. What would it take for you to just trust yourself and listen to your own CEO and do it? That was all it took. He just didn't see it. Once he saw it, he's like, oh, okay. I just need to wax on, wax off. Once my Mr. Miyagi has told me what to do, I need you to just go and do that. We need that. That's our discipline.
I was going to say, it sounds like the CEO needed to up the ante a little bit. Maybe $5 consequence wasn't enough for him. It didn't motivate him enough.
But maybe my suspicion is he'd just still rebel against it because there was a part of him that's like, I don't want to be told what to do. I want freedom. And as a wise man, Jerry Goodman, once said, don't let freedom become your prison.
Well, we've talked about prison. We've talked about freedom. David, I like to ask all the Inspired Money guests, how do you define success?
Success for me is feeling happy. That's it. If I'm feeling happy and at peace, that's a win. Now, that wasn't the way I defined it growing up. I thought things had to be bigger than Ben-Hur. That's an expression in Australia. Do you use that in the US?
Yeah, can.
All right. It had to be bigger than Ben-Hur. Like if I get a job, it had to be a job on Park Avenue. If I'm consulting, I got to be consulting to Ford and Exxon and Sony Music. If I'm when I became a professional entertainer, I had to get on national TV. And then when snowboarding wasn't enough, I needed to be a snowboarding instructor. And then paragliding, had to go and fly the Himalayas. When I started a business on life coaching, I was number one on Google. And then I'd talk to friends from school. I'd say, how are you? What's going on in your life? Nothing new. I didn't understand it. My frame of reference was like, you must be working on something huge to be of any value. That was my frame of reference. It took me a long time to learn that those friends from school that sit in the backyard and look up at the mountain and crack a beer while the kids are playing around their feet, they'd really learned something. That was success because they were feeling happy and at peace. So now that's really my goal. I just want to have a good time. I want to enjoy my life. And if I get some great success as I do it, then hey, that's really great too. And it's always nice to have loads of money in the bank and to be able to buy whatever you want. But that's not my primary motivator. If that was my primary motivator, I would have been an investment banker. But instead, I've gone into coaching because one of the ways that I get happy is being of service. When I can serve someone to have their life be better, I feel great. I help them put the pieces together and they're like, oh, that's what I need. All right, off I go. That's a good time. That's what makes me successful. Not because I have a whole bunch of clients and money, but because I'm feeling happy about it.
That series of things that you've accomplished, bigger than Ben-Hur accomplishments, did that bring you happiness?
Wow. Definitely for a period of time. Like the day I got on stage and there were 1,200 people in the audience and I'd never sold anything from the stage. And this one you kind of had to, or you'd never be invited back because you split it with the organizer. And the day I offered my training product, and I thought if I can sell 10 grand, that would be amazing. And we sold $125,000 worth of product in 15 minutes. Like that was a high. So it's fun to have those. And then the next speech we gave, there were less people in the audience. We tripled sales, dude. I kid you not. In 15 minutes, it was $330,000. Now, it's not like I live my life like that. These are career highlights. And when I got on TV to, as Mr. Woody to sing 500 miles wearing a kilt, and you can Google that, those were highs. And so, yeah, for a while, that'll give happiness. And I think that's cool. I think we should always try and do really cool, amazing stuff. I don't think it's the be all and end all, but why not?
I get it. It's a moving target. It's not static.
Yeah, it'll disappear. It'll disappear after a while, and then what's the next thing? One repeatable source of joy for me is my dog. I committed to Boulder. I got a house. I got a car. I got health insurance. I'd moved from Bali, where cost of living's very, very cheap, and I committed to all of this partly because I needed a place where I could have a dog. So that's why I'm here. And then she comes and gets me out of my hyper focus on business or video games or whatever I'm doing, and gets me out of the house for a little bit. So that's a repeatable source of joy right there.
I love it. Happiness, and that we can accomplish more while still maintaining that happiness. David, tell the Inspired Money listener where to get the cheat sheet, where to learn more about you, and where to follow you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you can go to focus.ceo. That's a new extension they have. So it's not .com, it's actually focus.ceo. And I tell you what, man, when I found that domain, because I was looking for domains around focus and helping CEOs, the one so this is an aside, but focus.vip was going for like 5 to 10 grand. That's how much these were going for. And then focus.ceo was going for $19. I thought they made a mistake and that they were going to write to me and say, I'm sorry, we have to take it back. Well, no one's taken it back yet. So focus.ceo you can go to, but I've got a gift basket for listeners. You can get a cheat sheet with this checklist of what we talked about today and a 6-minute video on how to implement it. I'll also give you, I've got a new training that's jam-packed with info, and I've condensed it into 35 minutes on how to double revenue and your time off in 12 months. And you can get all of that at myfocusgift.com. That's myfocusgift.com. Get all those goodies and lots more.
That's great. Well, thank you for sharing your personal story and the tips to get all of us focused and setting off on the right foot for the new year.
Yeah, my pleasure. And any business owners out there who are interested in not just more revenue, but also want more time off, and you care about how you show up in the world. It's not just business and money, but you want your personal life to be amazing, then go and check out my site and see if coaching might be a fit.
Great. We'll have that all in the show notes. Thank you so much, David.
Hey, Andy, great to meet you. This is one of the more thoughtful, thought-provoking interviews that I've had, so I'm really appreciating you.